So good morning, everybody. Very, very welcome as always. And again to our Dirty Salad Club for May. Delighted to have you with us. Lots of familiar faces this morning. So thank you as always for making the time to come back and join us for these sessions. For anybody who's here for the first time, Dirty Salad Club is a place for anybody who's working in HR, L&D, talent management, any of those places, executive coaches, life coaches. It's a space for all of us to get together, to learn from each other, to learn a little bit more about our profession, what we do, to discuss, to share ideas, to be vulnerable. I'll just ask anybody who's not on mute there to pop themselves on mute, please, just to minimize the background noise. Thanks a million. The name, for anybody who's curious, Dirty Salad Club is the name of a band that our colleague Alan used to be in, but we thought it was quite fitting for this purpose, because the idea that in a way these sessions are a little bit dirty because it's a space for us to be vulnerable, maybe to share things with our fellow colleagues and professionals that we wouldn't share with our clients. Salad in that, look, it's good for us. It's healthy to get together and have these kind of conversations, and club, of course, we're all in this together and there's a common purpose in it. This morning, we're very, very lucky to have the lovely, lovely Eileen with us, Eileen Blishen. Eileen is now, are you ready for this list of accreditations? So Eileen is a former barrister, but in her own words, she's a barrister, but she's okay now. She's also an MII accredited mediator, an EMCC accredited coach. She has studied herself and lectures on postgraduate programs in conflict resolution and mediation. So very, very well qualified to talk to us this morning about coaching through conflict. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing some of the things she has to say and share with us. So Eileen, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks so much. Okay, folks, so I'm delighted to see you all here today. You're very, very welcome. Thank you very much for that very fulsome intro, Tanya. And as Tanya has said, this is a safe space for us as people out working in the world, or HR folk or whatever, or coaches, other coaches. And what I would love to do over the course of the presentation is I'm going to be asking you for some questions, and maybe you would be kind enough to share some of your experiences or experiences that you have had within your coaching practice or in the workplace. But one thing I will point out, just please everybody be super, super careful. And I'll remind you of this again. I'll sound like a stuck record. This is being recorded. So be super careful about naming names or being very obvious about some workplace or other. I know we're all very, very amped up about our confidentiality within our coaching and mediation practices, but do remember sometimes you can just slip within the comfort of your own home when you're watching from Zoom. So do be especially mindful about naming names, because we might get into some down and dirty stuff today. Hopefully it'll be fairly lighthearted, and we'll just talk through aspects of conflict. And I always feel, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I watch parties in conflict and I think, you know, those people are having the same argument again and again. Why is that? Or why are they having this conflict at all? Or could person A not have communicated that in a better way? And we'll be familiar with that whole idea with the idea of reframing that we would use within our coaching practices, basically repeating back to our clients, and we use in mediation as well, taking the explosive words out of statements. So the whole area of conflict has always fascinated me. Surprise, surprise. And I just kind of, I feel I evolved away from legal practice. The mediation side of things really appealed to me more. And the coaching with working with people as well. A lot of it just, I suppose you could say I'm in flow really when I'm dealing with conflict and taking the heat out of it and sorting it out, and just being very careful with people as well, because as I'll be talking to you in a few minutes about this, when you're dealing with people in conflict, you're not just dealing with the conflict, you're dealing with the people themselves. And as coaches, particularly, we have to know if we're coaching people and they're quite high conflict. We have to know where to draw that line. I can't tell you where that is today. We don't have enough time, and it would be very person specific. And always go to your supervisor if you're in doubt. But if you're dealing with a person in conflict and there seems to be some element there that you can't quite put your finger on, reach out to your supervisor, and you may have to refer them on to counseling. So that's one of those things that you've got to watch out for from the outset. So that's just a few things to look out for. And then towards the end of the talk, if we have enough time, I'm going to speak to you just a little bit about mediation. Some of you might be, hands up, is anybody here an accredited mediator? Any hands going up there? No? Okay, so the great thing about mediation is that a lot of the skills that we have mastered as coaches, you can use in mediation. So there's, as I explained to people, if you were drawing a Venn diagram, there would be a huge intersection between mediation and coaching. There really would be. And another thing to think about is, because of the pandemic, there has been a lot of backup in the court system and in other traditional routes for resolving conflict in the workplace, the more formalized routes, the ones that even use mediation within them, like the WRC. So, you know, I always feel, because I'm ridiculously idealistic, if people just knew a little bit more about conflict and understood how and when it arises and knew how to stave it off and had maybe better conflict management practices in their workplace, and maybe knew a bit more about emotional intelligence, although thank goodness, Kinch Lions have the unbelievable Billy Byrne, the god of emotional intelligence. If you haven't caught up with any of his talks, do yourself a favor and do so. So Billy Byrne will save your life, basically. Getting to grips with emotional intelligence is really key to all of this. It's knowing what is going on, and also knowing yourself is 50% of the story here. As we are told when we are training as coaches, always, always look at yourself. If you're in a situation that might trigger you, you have to know what your triggers are. You have to know how you're responding, and if you're doing the best for your client, because we are supposed to be there with them 100%. It's all about them at the end of the day. So if you're somebody who is given to saying, oh, I don't like conflict, I don't do confrontation well, maybe have a look at that. And if you can figure out why and maybe come to terms with it, brilliant. Again, I'll say it again, watch Billy Byrne's brilliant Dirty Salad Club talks. They're a good place to start. Getting to grips with emotional intelligence and all of this is really, really key. Now, as I will be getting into the nuts and bolts of the talk, I've kind of taken it back to basics, because as I said to Tanya when I was prepping for this, I said to her that I do read a lot, and I do love you know, referring people to books and materials and stuff. And I will do that at the end of this talk, probably towards the end of the week, beginning of next week. Tanya will be sending out a list of references, stuff that I have been speaking about during the course of this talk, so you can have a look at it yourself. As I said to Tanya anyway, when I was preparing all of this, I'll be referring to the seminal works, and I'm explaining myself thus. If I'm not a huge nerd, I'm certainly nerd adjacent. So you'll just have to bear with me. But I've kind of taken out the common sense stuff. I'm not going to drill down into a lot of very deep theory. You can do that for yourselves if your interest is piqued by any of this, certainly. And some of the names will certainly resonate with you. And I've kind of gone back to basics. I'll be mentioning people like Bernard Meyer and Stephen Covey, because from my readings, I have found that I have read more modern books, and there's some really good ones out there, and a lot of them resonate back to those seminal works. You can see where the ideas first were sown, and they've kind of grown. And I just find really in some cases that the originators did it best. So that's why I keep referring back to some of the older stuff, because I just find it so very useful. So I hope that's okay. And we can kick off with that. So we'll kick off with the slide deck and the first slide there. So we're going to be talking about working, as well as the general issues around conflict, working with our clients in conflict. And of course, the first thing is to understand it and how and where it occurs. We're going to be looking at that. There's a multitude of places in which conflict can arise. And as I've already said, the impact on you and your client. So do watch yourself, watch, it's one of those, what's the word? One of those somatic things as well. Not only will you mentally feel a bit uncomfortable in a conflict situation, or if a client is talking about a conflict, and especially if it's a conflict similar to something you've been involved in yourself, you may be triggered. So do keep an eye on your own breathing, and, you know, clenching your stomach might feel, you know, a little bit topsy-turvy, all that sort of stuff. Keep an eye on that. And remember, always remember, we have supervisors as coaches. Always go back to your supervisor if you find you've gotten yourself into a situation and you need to do the best for the client, and perhaps back out of it, refer them on to another coach, or maybe they need to go to counseling. So it's a tricky area and not one to be approached lightly. So mind yourselves, be careful of yourselves, and be mindful of your client. Right, so we'll move on then, and we'll just have a quick look at areas in which the types of conflict that we can have. So some of this talk today is going to kind of dovetail with what John and Glenn were talking about during the last Dirty Salad Club. I know they were talking about the use of language, and of course that is key as well. It's extremely important. And they were talking about needs and values, which are really at the core of everything, human needs. So I'll be going on a bit about those later on as well. So conflict can arise when one party thinks or believes. Okay, that's an important word there. They think or they believe that another party has or is about to negatively impact on something that's important to them. And that's, generally speaking, a need or a value. And there are two types of conflict. They break down into many, many subsections. We're not going to get into everything at all today. We won't have sufficient time, but basically there's your functional conflict, the kind of conflict that will lead to a good, healthy, productive workplace, one that has a good deal of psychological safety. Has anybody read the Amy Edmondson book or follow Amy Edmondson, the Harvard professor? She talks a lot about psychological safety. Any hands going up there, Tanya? Amy Edmondson? I'll put that down on the list as well. So functional conflict, an example might be a productive debate between two people or a team. And decisions can be made about how to achieve the best possible outcome. Nice, healthy, functional conflict. And a dysfunctional conflict, always destructive. It can impede or explode a team. It might be a power struggle between individuals or groups. I'm sure we've all seen it at some point. Has anybody seen any kind of dysfunctional conflict recently? Anything that they want to mention at this point without mentioning names? Anybody want to feed in this early? No?
It's okay, Eileen. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Denise.
Yeah, so a situation that has recently come up for me, and I work mostly.
Remember, we're being recorded.
Yeah. And I work mostly with schools, has been undermining behavior by one candidate for interview who was unsuccessful against the person who was successful.
Yes, that's a very common scenario. Yeah. I have actually seen it myself, and I've heard about it several times. The unhappy person, someone who doesn't take what they see as rejection, someone with black and white thinking, and they're all against me now, and everybody else is laughing at me. I didn't get the promotion. There's the feeling there is shame and rejection, and it just leads into conflict. And of course, the broader team that they work in are going to be feeling quite stressed if this person is, I don't know, perhaps going around the room slamming doors and not responding to "hi, how are you" kind of thing. So you can see how something like that just has a ripple effect, and it's really not good for the team. So it's something to watch out for. And again, that person's lack of self-awareness, perhaps they've never done any work on themselves, or they need to speak to Billy Byrne about emotional intelligence, or have a coach perhaps bring up their emotional intelligence skills. That would probably be a good way to start, wouldn't it, Denise?
Absolutely, yeah. And I second what you say about Billy. Absolutely amazing.
Isn't yeah. This is turning into the Billy Byrne fan club.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what harm? Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. And what we are looking here, I'm sure a lot of you, hands up, have any of you, or a lot of you, certainly any coaches, will probably have heard of the Thomas Kilmann conflict model. Yeah. Okay, so you see how it works, and there is a particular set of questions that you can answer, and from that you can deduct what your conflict style is. Now, there are other models. This is kind of the most well-known one, and it's a bit of an overview, and it can, whether or not it is you feel fully on the nose as far as your conflict style is, how you behave in a conflict. It's something that you can do with, if you're going in to do a team coaching situation, or working with several people, or even, as I say, I think of it myself in the coaching practice, getting their heads in the room. It's something that they can do to get buy-in, to get them thinking about conflict styles, because you can talk all you want, and as we all know, a tiny percentage of what we're saying is actually going in. So if you get your clients to think about conflict models and how they might possibly be, this would be a good place to start. It's very straightforward, and you can see the levels of assertiveness there on the line going up and down on the left, and cooperativeness, low and high, collaboration, compromise. So there are 24 of you, which makes me and Tanya are 2 of those. So there's 22 of you, which is a nice even number. So do you want to, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms just for a couple of minutes. And if you could both talk to each other in pairs in your breakout room about a conflict you've witnessed, or one you've been involved in yourself, and have a think about it and where you think you fit within that scheme there. What kind of style do you have? And maybe say a few words about it when you come back. Is that okay? Can you put it?
How long would you like to give in the breakout rooms?
I don't think it'd take too long. Maybe just about, how long would people need to talk about their conflicts? Would 10 minutes be too long? Too short?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe we go 7?
Sure, 7 sounds great. Thanks, Tanya.
Super. These are open now, folks, so you should see an invite on screen to join a breakout room.
Hi, Maeve.
Hi.
Hi. So everybody is back in the room now. I hope you had some interesting chats with each other. How do you feel about that particular model there? Would you slot yourself into any type, or do you have something to say about, any remarks to make about it at all? Have you noticed anything about yourself in a conflict situation? How you might have dealt with it? Anybody prepared to be brave enough to speak about how they are?
I think for me, I'm definitely in the avoidance accommodation sort of line along there, and sort of come from a family where conflict was to be avoided at all times. What I noticed that in my work roles, I'm better able to manage conflict, but on the whole, I'll always be in that sort of bottom bit, sort of trying to wiggle around to make everyone feel okay. And it was really interesting. Carol and I were talking in that sense of actually having the contract, making the boundaries very safe and everything like that seems to be a very good way to to know we're going into some choppy water, but actually that can really help hold you in role, I think. And that was very helpful, interesting.
Right, lovely to see you, by the way, Jenny.
Love to see you too.
Okay, that's really good feedback. Thank you so much. Anybody else got anything to add? Anybody else want to speak up about how they are noticed about themselves in a conflict situation?
Hi, Eileen.
Hi.
I we can share. Yeah, so I spoke with Gina, and we both of us in the situation we described, I think we felt we went to kind of the high assertiveness but low cooperativeness competition. But what I kind of realized was that if you let the little things go, if you don't nip conflict in the bud, it's very hard to pull back then, so I think that was the result maybe was the result of having to go to that competitive piece where you're not being cooperative and you're not going to compromise, is because you hadn't dealt with it earlier, you hadn't dealt with the little infringements. Sure. And had communication on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, it's kind of the cracks are always going to be evident. It's just the degree to which they're going to continue to impact upon your relationship with the group or the other person involved, isn't it? So yeah, it's good. That's why, once again, emotional intelligence is such a key thing. And normally when I am coaching in this space, well, it's so useful for just about everything, obviously. I'm such a huge advocate of the EQI tool, to use that in coaching. And full disclosure, I trained up with Kinch Lyons. Tanya trained me in the use of the tool, and I just find it absolutely excellent. I really do. It just shows up your client's skills set and within the realm of emotional intelligence and the skills they're using more or less. And quite often what people see really surprises them. And it's a great way to start a coaching conversation. It that opens the door to everything. Somebody can see in black and white, and they've scored it themselves. So, there's a degree of accuracy there as well. I do enjoy using that tool, I must say. So we'll move on to the next slide. Unless anybody's got any burning thing they want to share with us about their conflict style, we can move on. Everybody else okay? All right. Okay, so Bernard Meyer, one of the big names in conflict. If you haven't, I would just, as I say, if I'm not a nerd, I'm nerd adjacent. I'm so excited about all of these people. If you have not read any Bernard Meyer, do, and then read it again. He's as far as I'm concerned, one of the top people who writes about conflict, and he's been doing it for a very long time, very, very seasoned practitioner in that realm. So a good quote from him is, as we develop our ability to understand conflict in a deeper and more powerful way, we enhance our ability to handle it effectively. That's just, once again, common sense. Once you know what you're dealing with, you know how to handle it. And he breaks conflict into three different components, if you like. There is the perception, the feeling, and the action. And I spoke a bit at the very beginning about people's perceptions, their belief, their understanding that maybe some need of theirs is about to be negatively impacted upon. And then there's the somatic end of things, the feeling, either intellectual feeling or within the body, the somatic feeling. And then of course there's the action, the conflictual action. So let's just see, the conflict behavior expressed is chiefly in order to get their needs met. And you remember looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think John and Glenn probably mentioned it last week, or I'm sure you're all familiar with it anyway. If you need to have a think about what needs must be addressed, always refer back to Maslow. He's not the only model of needs theory, but he's a good one. It's a good place to start. So Meyer identifies the 5 sources of conflict, and all of these, I'm sure you're in your minds going, yes, yes, yes. Communications, we've already spoken a little bit about, and that is really huge. That is, we could do hours talking about communications poor communications leading to conflict situations. And just for the next week or so, keep an eye out for that and watch people speak to each other and see how they could have communicated a little bit better, how things could have been put differently. Did they have to word the email that way? And of course, as we all know, especially during lockdown, texting, social media, emails, the way people word things really, it's key to so many conflicts that arise day to day. Another thing that we have to bear in mind in relation to communication is the area of diversity within the population. What might be totally all right, one Irish person to another Irish born person might be horribly insulting to somebody else. And we have to get on top of that. If we're to be a mature, inclusive society, we have to get on top of that and just be open to it. It's no huge deal, just be open to learning about it. And a lot of communication problems ultimately will lead to conflict. This is just common sense stuff. And of course, on the receiving end of the bad communication is the perception that somebody's having a need impinged upon. And of course, the other ones are emotions, values, structures within the interactions take place. So that could be, in your workplace or in the home. There could be a history there. Somebody could have come from a particularly turbulent home. And if something starts within their own family, in their own home, later on, it could all kick off that way. And similarly, that also impinges on history. Now, the history thing is all important because that is the area, if you stray into it, somebody's history, there could have been trauma there, and there could have been something that needs perhaps a little bit of further professional help, something beyond the realm of a coach. And again, as I'll say it again, it bears repeating, do have a chat with your supervisor, and if necessary, refer them on to proper professional help. So you're walking a fine line, and it's really your own experience, your own life experience is going to make the red flags go up. And knowing when to intervene can sometimes be key as well. In the broader range of international conflict, you will hear the term ripeness. A conflict has to be ready to be resolved. So you have to know when to strike. If you go a little bit too early, there won't have been sufficient venting. A conflict kind of has a life of its own. And if you cut it off too early, sometimes, which sounds a bit against what we've already been saying, if a conflict does erupt, it's sometimes the people just need to vent. They need to get it out there. And in that way, you can pick up the clues as to what actually is going on. So sometimes that whole idea of ripeness, you'll see that come up in the field of conflict resolution, can be important. And just getting back to the structure for a second as well, that structure can refer to not just a workplace or your home life. Structures more the mental framework, or for example, litigation. It can, of course, is key for bringing up the worst in people. Right, and then of course, history can apply not only to our own personal history, but the broader field of history. And as we're all in Ireland, I'm sure I need hardly remind you, north of the border, there is a level of history there, and so much conflict continues to erupt over that. So many dividing lines between communities, between people. It's something that's just going on and on for the time being anyway. Do note that all of these sources of conflict, those 5 sources at the bottom of that slide, they all interact with each other, of course. They're not mutually exclusive at all. So another thing to think about though is, and something I have come across quite a few times in my coaching practice, is a leader who has probably not fully developed their skills, their leadership skill set or their emotional intelligence skills. and they're very conflict avoidant. So what that's going to lead to, obviously, is a poor culture in a workplace. If you don't have a leader who's prepared and strong enough to lead from the front, and if they're seeing conflictual situations breaking out and they avoid the conflict, it's just going to impact negatively on everybody. So that's something to look out for as well. If you're going into a conflict coaching situation and the leader is conflict avoidant, you need to ask a lot of questions. If somebody has been put forward to you to coach and you're being told, well, you know, we want you to coach this person, they seem to get into a lot of rows at work, they're a high conflict personality, would you ever speak to them? So what you can do is, you know, have a good look at them yourself and think, is this actually true? And what is, you need to do a lot of digging, what is going on in the workplace? And it's extremely common for people to attract these labels, such as high conflict personality. And it's actually not true. They're not the problem at all. And sometimes the thing we all have to watch out for is perhaps you're providing coaching and the real reason behind it is there is half an idea formulating in the organization, within the organization, to exit this person. So you need to be very careful when you're going into a coaching situation in those circumstances. So we'll have a little look on the next slide at Myers' Wheel of Conflict. I just thought I would include that your next slide. Tanya, can you flash up the next slide there?
I will. We're almost at time, Eileen, as well. Just a few minutes left.
Sure. So that's just a good graphic to keep in your mind. You can see that needs are central within Myers' Wheel of Conflict, and all of the other things feed into that. So there is nothing that's exclusive within that. It all feeds into it. And you can see the outer parts of the circle as well. There's the culture, the power, personality, all of that. It all feeds into the wheel of conflict. All of those things are going to impact. So I think we can probably, the next slide is the hierarchy of needs. I'm sure everybody has seen that. So it builds up and up and up. The chief thing everybody wants to attain is self-actualization, which is great. But if any of those needs are impacted upon negatively, it more than likely is going to lead to a conflict situation. All of those things. And you can see here, for example, the green bar: respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. I'm sure we can all think of 100 examples of any of those, any of the bars. I just used the green one as a good example. So if you want to flash on to my next golden oldie is Stephen. Oh,
want to go to Stephen Covey?
Yeah. Don't forget my favorite person in the world, sadly no longer with us, Stephen Covey. I am evangelical about this book. It was kind of progenitor of books with titles that have numbers in them. But my goodness, if you have to read one book for the rest of your life, let it be this. The man was a fountain of wisdom, a very highly respected academic, but he also did a ton of research with people, and he wrote this book. It's absolutely phenomenal, really is. If you're completely stuck for time, I know on YouTube there are a few short, I don't know what they're called, cartoons, which are shortened versions of the book, and they're good just to get you thinking about things. So the 7 habits, and this is one that's often taught in coaching courses as well. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's habit number 5. Empathic listening is so powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with. Instead of projecting your own autobiography and assuming thoughts, feelings, motives, and interpretation, you're dealing with the reality inside the other person's head and heart. You're listening to understand. Now, we've dealt with this when we've spoken about 360-degree listening and focused listening, all that sort of thing. But I think Stephen Covey puts it particularly well when he calls it empathic listening. I prefer to call it empathic listening because you really are listening with your head and your heart. You're focused on receiving the deep communication of another human soul. And really, that's what we're all about. We're human beings dealing with other human beings. And my goodness, if the pandemic taught us anything at all, surely it's that. We all need to be treating each other a little bit better. So let's see. Yeah, another thing to watch out for is another guru, coaching guru, Peter Bluekert. I'm sure you're all familiar with him. He says sometimes in the field of coaching, coaches can go into a conflict situation and they start thinking, you know, as per the training, I should be moving this person on. I need to move them on. How can I get them away from this? But within conflict coaching, you do actually need to understand the person more. So again, this is once again where your emotional intelligence is going to kick in, and maybe have a look at the Marsha Reynolds book, Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And I think it's all there in the title for you as well. Extremely important to get on top of that. So we're at 47 minutes, Tanya. I had a few more slides which I will send out with the talk. Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Anybody got any questions in the last few minutes we have left? I can have you look at the SCARF model. It's a good way to start. If you are, could we just have a quick look at the slide then, Tanya, if nobody's got any burning questions? So it's a good way to get to the root of the issue. You can talk to the clients about any one of those things. And obviously there are a particular need. Status is a huge one. Like Denise told us, somebody went for an interview, they didn't get the promotion, and rejection, you know, they feel probably their status, among a few other things, have been impacted. So there's going to be conflict there. Certainty, people don't know what the results of the pandemic are going to be for their industry. Are they going to be kept on? Are they going to be sent to work somewhere else? They don't know anybody, all that sort of thing. Huge, huge issue for people who are particularly introverts and people who like to have things, people who like to have their meeting papers 2 weeks before a meeting happens, they can study them quietly. Autonomy is a huge one. See a lot of people being micromanaged, and that is never a good thing. You're taking someone's autonomy from them. Everybody needs autonomy in their workplace. And relatedness, my goodness, once again, did we learn nothing from the pandemic? How we all relate to each other. There's been a sharp focus on that one. And of course, fairness, I don't need to explain that one. So any of those can be impacted and can result in some sort of conflict. Another thing to watch for, I just want to mention this, is there are workplaces where everybody's herded together and there is what I call, in my direct way, a box tick exercise. They've all had feed in to putting together maybe a set of norms, how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to be in this workplace. And that's all well and good, but there has to be follow through. It can't be just a box tick exercise. And you sometimes find that leaders with an avoidant conflict style might do that, think, okay, that's done. No, we've dealt with the conflict thing, that's fine. It's not dealt with at all. So if you're going into an organization, ask a lot of questions, speak to the people, because you might be at nothing if you're told this is a great place to work. If there's a really bad culture, people would be too afraid to tell you something different. So you need to do your best by your clients always. So digging down is what you're going to be doing. And another thing, don't forget some of the old fail safes. If you're coaching and there are two people at loggerheads with each other and just not getting on, I love the old stuff. And there's a great explanation of the meta mirror in the Jenny Rogers book, which is basically an explanation of the chair switch exercise. And that's on the next slide, I think, Tanya. So that's a good one, and extremely powerful. It works every time I've used it in a conflict situation. It's just so good. I use it in coaching and I use it in mediation if I'm in a caucus with somebody and there isn't any movement. So I'm sure you're all familiar with how that works. And I think we're going to have to leave it there if nobody has any questions. Still no questions? Okay.
I imagine there might be lots of interest and potential questions, Eileen, but I'd say people are mindful of time as well.
Sorry, folks, I do tend to ramble on a bit, but I will give lots of references to Tanya to send out to you all. And hopefully you can follow up on some of that. and do some reading yourselves, and just to think about things. Be very careful. There is always a note of caution if you're going into a conflict situation.
I've just put your contact details up there, Eileen, as well. If people might have questions that maybe they don't want to ask in the group, or any curiosities for Eileen. I'm sure it's okay to say, Eileen, is it, if people reach out to you there?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, do contact me. That's my website. You can reach me through the website, or you can mail me directly, mail@eileenblishen.com. It's a strange name, but it's mine. So, the only one in the country. So sorry, folks, that was a bit of a fly through. I hope you picked up a few bits and pieces from that might be useful to you, and you can take them forward into your practices. And as I say, do reach out if you want to, or if you want to just talk through certain situations. I'd be always happy to help a colleague. And everybody get trained up in the EQI assessment. Right.
Thank you very much, Eileen. And Tanya, thank you too.
Hi, Caroline.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Tanya.
Really good, really good. Thanks so much, girls.
Thanks
so much. Yeah, Eileen, loads of thanks and comments about great insights and that, sir. So I think everybody really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. And this is another one similar to, I think, to John and Glenn's one last month. This could be another one, Eileen, where we'll have you back for a part 2 at some stage.
Yes, absolutely. Part 2, 3, 4, and 5. My goodness. Those how long is a piece of string scenarios, really. Yeah. I'd be delighted.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me, Tanya.
No, thank you. For anyone who's free to join us next month, I'm going to be hosting Dirty Salad Club next month, the 22nd of June, and I'm going to be talking about ROI in coaching. For anyone who is coming along next month, I'd say come along ready to take part, join in, have a conversation, because this is certainly a topic, ROI in coaching. It's one I don't have all of the answers to, so it's going to be a really interactive session. We're all going to hopefully learn a lot from each other. So any of you that are free for that, Wednesday the 22nd of June at 11 a.m. And thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. As always, enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks, Tanya.
Bye. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.